Welcome to the Steve Reeve Podcast with the best moments from the past week and a few things that didn't make it there. Thursday.
What the heck is the clap tax? The practice of, at like a kid's graduation ceremony for a very specific instance, only allowing people to clap once when the child gets the acknowledgement. Now that sounds awful, doesn't it? I mean, it's like, well, you want to give some applause for the kids. And the reason I think behind it, one of the major ones, is because, well, there's the big applause for everybody at the end, and they want to make sure that, you know, sometimes a kid might have a bunch of people in the audience, or sometimes a kid might not have anybody in the audience, or one person, you know, and so the sound of the clapter for all of the children might sound different, and so that might, you know, have a chance for a kid to internalize that and maybe feel extra bad about themselves, or on the flip side, get a little bit too much ego about it, you know, but I'm not really caring so much about that part. I'm a little bit more selfish about it. I want the one clap rule per kid just because I want to get out of there sooner. You know, there's a lot of kids to get through, all right? We can't just stop for 30 seconds, a minute for every single one. That's why they do the big applause at the end. You can clap for as long as you want. If there's refreshments outside, you can meet me there. They dented the cup within 36 hours of the Florida Panthers winning Lord Stanley's Cup. People have spotted a crack in the top rim of said cup. A sizable dent in the base as well, and doorbell cam images of Panthers captain Alexander Barkov walking around his neighborhood at 5 a.m. showing it off to anybody he could wake up, which is priceless to me. Now, you know, of course, some people might shout, "Oh, disrespect! Oh, well, it should have been the Oilers." It should have been the Oilers, but this thing happens. They get to party with it, and it is a big celebration. Certainly isn't the first time and won't be the last time that the cup gets dinged. They'll fix it up. They got some serious professionals for it. And I've heard duplicates, replicas, maybe plural, right? My question is, how does the superstition work in this scenario? That's the part that I just don't be knowing.
You're listening to the Steve Reeve Podcast from 100.5 Cruz FM.
This is cool. There's a major Fort McMurray connection in two big Netflix shows right now at the same time. A friend of the show, Umberly Gonzalez, originally from Venezuela, caught the acting bug here in Fort McMurray. The rest is history. Now she plays Sophie Sanchez in Ginny and Georgia, which, I mean, she's been doing that for a while, but we just saw season 3 arrive and shoot up to like number 1, number 2, the trending in Canada, most watched. And as of today, you can actually catch all 8 episodes of The Waterfront, where she plays a character named Jenna Tate, alongside other actors like Melissa Benoist, Topher Grace, and a bunch more. This is probably the biggest name for me, at least, is the showrunner, the guy who developed it. His name's Kevin Williamson, the guy behind, you do like the Scream franchise, I Know What You Did Last Summer, The Faculty, Dawson's Creek, Vampire Diaries, and on and on. If you do dive in, that's a Waterfront joke. Then let me know what you think about it.
It's time for Cruise Music News with Steve Reeve.
So, Sum 41's Derek Whibley already out of retirement. The band themselves have now completely finished their career with a big opus and goodbye, and then retirement, which you knew was never going to last, but maybe a couple months wasn't what we were thinking, but it's just Derek Whibley solo style, and he was joining his former wife, Avril Lavigne. And this was because she was headlining the Vans Warped Tour just a couple days ago, and she surprised the audience by bringing him out to do a cover of one of their greatest songs, In Too Deep. I mean, In Too Deep at the Warped Tour with Derek Whibley and Avril Lavigne. That sounds like a good time to me. Carol Kay is infamously turning down her Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. She did a lot of work, session musician from back in the 60s and 70s, and worked a lot with several different groups, but was with the Wrecking Crew label for the most time. That's what she is associated with. And she says that she will not accept as a solo artist simply because of the era that she is being recognized for, the golden era of 1960s recording hits. She says it was group efforts in every single case. She says at that time there was a good 350 to 400 musicians that were utilizing the studios that she was utilizing, and it was a group effort. And so she just won't be there in October. Meanwhile, a bit of a lukewarm response to the very first trailer for the Bruce Springsteen biopic. It's called Deliver Me From Nowhere, starring Jeremy Allen White, and the very first trailer did arrive this week with a lot of reactions going, okay, well, I wasn't expecting that. Now, it's early on. There might be a lot of great changes, and every once in a while, we just get a trailer that's bad in and of itself, and it doesn't mean that the movie is. So, fingers crossed, but not a great first impression.
Friday.
The first thing that I think of, when the G7 summit ever comes up is, of course, wildlife. Wait, no. I wouldn't make that association ever, but it was held in Kananaskis, meaning the high likelihood of encountering the many wild animals of the boreal forest in Alberta. And they did have some encounters, so I found it interesting. The counter of encounters is about 200 responses to animals, though nothing out of the ordinary made it into any reports. Pretty run-of-the-mill stuff. Though there were grizzly bears, black bears, cougars, moose, bighorn sheep, deer, oh my. And there were early reports of a hog, too, but it appears to have left the area before too long. Probably for the best. Starting off, the brothers Gallagher are getting back into the most important aspect of their reunion, which is going to be bringing live music to the people in the tour that begins before too long. And that would be merchandising. They've showed up in a new Adidas Originals ad. I think it's so funny because they're saying it is two brothers, two icons, one band, and a brand that's been with them every step of the way. If you know the history of Adidas, that was started by a guy named Adi Dassler. His brother, Rudolf Dassler, started the company Puma in direct competition because there was a big family feud and they split their original shoe business apart. Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? Okay, all right, I'm on board again. Now, Muse has got a new single out called Unraveling, and they're going to be, of course, supporting that. They've just kicked off the European tour in Helsinki, Finland, and they're saying they're back at it. And with more to come, of course, with a full album and maybe an expansion with dates a little closer to home for us. That is not too far from their origination in the UK, which is where Coldplay hails from, and they're in the news because they're reissuing all of their previous albums on LP, but specifically on vinyl that will be made from recycled plastic bottles, reducing manufacturing emissions by 85% compared to traditional vinyl production. How neat is that? That's the end of your music news. I'm Steve Reeve. Do you recall in your memory banks the period of time where literally everything was hunter green? So this was right after the period when wood paneling was on everything, including cars, and right before all technology was housed in bright, transparent plastic for a little while there. Right at the end of the 90s is when that happened. I mean, I'm talking in the depths of the 90s for nearly a decade, all cars, coats, blankets, walls, decor details, shag carpet bathroom rugs and toilet toppers, and backpacks, scarves, even the single couch, like every single couch that has ever been sat on in that period of time. It was all hunter green. Even if there was, some filigree, some details in there, it was that color, which I thought growing up was a thing around where I grew up here in the midst of the boreal forest. I thought, well, it just fits. Hunter green. I know a lot of people are hunters around here. A lot of people spend time in the evergreen trees. So that was my logical leap. As I grew up, I learned that this was not exclusive to the Fort McMurray area. This was everywhere. Everywhere in North America, hunter green reigned supreme. Do you remember?
Transmission over. Want more Steve? New podcast episodes happen every Friday, or just tune into the Steve Reeve Show. Weekday mornings starting at 5:30 a.m. on 100.5 Cruz FM.